Welcome to our first ever HUPERcast podcast. We're so excited about how we're moving forward. That's the word for this year. We're moving forward with our brand new format. You say new format to what? You've never done this before.
Right.
Well, it's new for the people who are used to our midweek live. We were doing last year during the pandemic. We really wanted a way to connect to people throughout the week, so they weren't just isolated. So we started doing midweek live. We called it every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And now we're shifting. A year later, we've moved on, and we want to take that idea, and we're gonna have what this podcast that we're calling HUPERcast, and it's going to be I want to say leaner and meaner, but it's not meaner. Leaner and not so meaner. We don't want it to be meaner, but it is going to be leaner. So we've taken out worship and different things, and it's just going to be a podcast.
Getting down to business.
That's right. So we're gonna talk about all kinds of Hooper stuff, not just the word Hooper, but just great stuff. Hooper means beyond. It's like super. So we're going to talk about some amazing stuff. We're going to have some amazing guests next week. We have an amazing guest coming.
One of my favorite people in the world.
He really is. And we're not going to tell you who it is. You got to come. Well, you may see it announced coming up, but we're not going to tell you right now. Right. But it's going to be great. We're going to have some of our regulars. We've got our regular folks. Not that they're ordinary or anything, but can we see? Yeah.
Ooh.
We got Danielle and Rachel. So we're going to have some great conversations.
Yeah.
We're going to get the best of all the worlds.
It's really, people keep asking me, what kind of podcast is it? And it's like, I guess, lifestyle podcast. It's kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, all the things. So when we were thinking about the first thing to do, because we were talking about, we're going to cover a lot of topics. We're still going to talk about hot topics.
Yeah, I'm just pumped I got my name on the podcast, the HUPERcast with Duane and Cody White.
How did you manage that?
Can we talk about how I got my name on that?
Yeah.
How is it possible that you did that?
I don't know.
And your picture, not just your name, but your picture.
Favorite.
Who designed that? I don't know.
That is something.
I'm the co-host.
Somebody just that designed it loved you. that must be.
It wasn't even approved. It was just done.
No, that's not true. But so we're going to do a lot of different things. But when we were talking about the first one that we were going to do, I think it was you. We were talking about this format, where to begin. You said, "Hey, Deb, why don't we start with your cap stuff?" And for those of you that think cap stuff, what does that mean? So for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, I've been doing this leadership teaching that just developed out of, I was just thinking about how we have capacity on our leadership, capacity on our life. And I love acronyms, but I knew there was no setting where I was going to do an acronym for capacity. Right. So I shortened it to a lid, like a cap, like you're wearing a cap, that you have a cap on something, you have a lid on something. So we had this, I had this idea. So I went through an acronym of CAP and do these 3 things that increase your capacity. But I actually have the whole thing, the whole acronym.
The whole thing.
I've just never done it.
You've been doing CAP before the youths have used it as an urban euphemism.
Yeah. Before they started saying no cap, I had cap. Yeah. That's right. And how to get no cap.
No cap. He's a prophet.
No cap.
Some people don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well. But the thing about it is, and we talked about this, it's not just a leadership teaching, it's a life teaching.
Yeah.
Because really, life is about capacity.
Right.
And this little thing also called self-leadership, right? So if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anybody else. But I believe we're all called to lead somebody. And if we're not called to lead anybody else, we're called to lead ourselves. And so we're gonna talk about this thing of capacity. You know, the idea came to me because I heard someone say this. The minute I surrender to the thought, I can't handle this, is the minute I've capped my life.
Yeah.
Now, listen. there's a disclaimer there. Obviously, there are times we don't feel like we can handle things. There are times that we need help. We need to reach out for help. I'm not saying that all, but many times, not all the time, many times, it may be that we just need a greater capacity.
Right.
Not that we just can't really handle it. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes the problem is not the crisis or the challenge that's in front of me, but it's the capacity that's inside of me.
Right.
So if I grow me, I can carry more. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know, the more you lift, the more you can lift.
Yeah.
You want to know how to lift more weight? How you lift more weight?
Lift more weight.
You lift more weight. So the way you're going to lift more weight is you lift more weight. But if you go in the gym and say, I can't lift that, even though you might not be able today, you never will. Wow. If you don't face the challenge and work towards it. Wow. So that's some of the stuff we're talking about, right? So if I want to improve my leadership, I got to begin by increasing my leadership capacity. If I want to improve my general ability, my abilities in life, then I got to work on increasing my capacity in life. If I don't increase my capacity, I'm gonna get stuck. Yeah. I'm gonna plateau. And every person, not only every leader, every person at every level has a potential for growth and a potential for stagnation. Yeah. It's so easy the older you get to just ride that train, just take the path of least resistance, right. but you're not going to increase your capacity. So there's always forces trying to cap your capacity. There's always forces trying to put a lid on your growth. So we're going to talk about how to live no cap. Now before we do that, I was thinking about kind of back to this thought that we were talking about a minute ago about increasing capacity. I use weight. I also thought about when you were playing football. Yeah. When we moved back from England, Cody wanted to play all things American. So he was fourth grade.
Red, white, and blue.
We put him straight into playing American football. For our British friends, I'm not talking about soccer. I'm not talking about English football. I'm talking about American football. Yeah. And so we put him into American football. And, of course, your capacity was very limited because you hadn't played much. Right. Then you went through middle school and your capacity increased. But the biggest difference, the biggest jump in capacity was high school to college. So talk to us about how that first day or that first week. Yeah. Well, I remember your first 7-on-7 while you were still in high school.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. So I competed that summer before my freshman year of college, and I did some 7-on-7 with so that's like kind of touch football with receivers and quarterback, that sort of thing. And I did it in the summer.
At the university.
At the college. Yeah. I did it in the summer, though. I don't know how illegal that is now that I think about it, but it's fine.
And you were 18.
Yeah,
so.
I was 18, but I don't think I was technically supposed to be doing anything.
Probably not.
Workouts with the university yet. But long story short, so I'm ready to go.
Sagu coming in hot with the illegal.
Shh, you can't say the names. People figure it's fine. We'll censor it. We'll go back and bleep it out. Bleep. So long story short,
unnamed Christian University.
Yeah, like I'm like ready to go, like show that I can show my worth, that sort of thing. And so I'm going all out, and I go across the middle. I catch a pass from the starting quarterback at the time, who is a baller. That dude is amazing.
Yes.
Shout out Reed. And
I was so proud.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. And I went across the middle, caught this ball, and I'm like trying to kind of make a move or whatever. I don't really even have a time to make a move. And the biggest guy that Sagu, I just said it again, it's fine, football had at the time, just obliterates me.
He was middle linebacker, right?
He was a middle linebacker, and he was
like a concrete pillar.
If you could just imagine if like rocks like were in human form, that was his arms and his shoulders. His traps were bigger than my biceps, and he just like we were full pads, just knocks me out.
You literally went. You were running and you went. Whoop, boom.
Yeah, it's what we call. I got decleated. Like I got decleated. And first of all, I was like, what the heck? This isn't tackle. We're not supposed to be doing this. But that was kind of the first wake-up call. And then I had many other wake-up calls past that. Even in the whenever we're maxing out and running our 40 times my freshman year, I hadn't really had a real weight program in high school. And so you have these guys coming in from 5A Texas football schools, even if they weren't like all-stars, they were still in these major programs. And so I'm like so far behind where I think I should be. And, you know, there's like, they're doing max, you know, they're repping, see what they can rep their max. So they're putting 45s on, right? And then me and like the kicker and 2 other guys, they're like, you can put 35s on for your max. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
And there were guys that were a couple years older than you that were repping what your max was.
So they're out here literally repping what like I can do one time struggle with my chest as high, you know, where you cheat, where you put your chest as high as possible. And so they're out here repping my max.
But you had a choice, and the choice was quit.
Yeah.
I guess you had 3 options: quit, walk away, or just stay where you were and not grow and complain and say, I didn't have the advantage they had. Yeah. I didn't have, or the third option, increase your capacity.
Yeah.
And you increase your capacity. I mean, the pictures of your size,
yeah.
You literally increase your capacity.
Yeah.
From August freshman year to August sophomore year. Massive difference.
I mean, the next year, I don't know if you even know the story, but the next year, I'm the guy. I'm a sophomore. I'm only a sophomore, so underclassman. I'm the guy with the new freshman. Like, hey, it's okay. We'll get you. Like, I'm encouraging the ones that are like,
you can do it.
Big-eyed, like I can't even do this. What is going on? Hey, well, it's all right. Just do what you can. We'll you know, if you work hard, you can get there. And I was there like a year before, and that was just work. You know.
And it all comes. So in life, whether it's football, leadership, job, work, school, whatever it is for you, relationships, what's your cap? What's your lid? How do you deal with it? I believe that there's some things you can do to increase your capacity in life and as a leader. If you work on these areas, it'll increase and you'll be more effective in what you do. Now listen, like I said, everybody knows me, knows I love acronyms. So we're going to go through an acronym, and we're going to do one each week for the next several weeks.
We're doing cap or capacity?
We're going to do capacity.
Oh,
I mean, this is never before heard content after the first 3. Once we get past P, never before heard content. I've had it develop, but I never had a time to unpack it. So if you keep watching, you're going to get some unheard stuff. Cool. So now then, this is still, even with capacity, it's not an all-inclusive list, right? I mean, we're not saying that there's everything, but I do believe that if you do these things, it will increase your capacity and grow into manifesting more of who God designed you to be. Yeah. Now let me key on the word manifesting. You are already all that God ever designed you to be in your spirit.
Right.
You had the potential inside of you to bench way more than you were. You just had to manifest it.
Right.
So capacity is about taking what's in us and increasing so that it goes out.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're talking about positive capacity, right? So like how to you have a cap that you can growing positively.
Yes.
But we also have these negative that I think we're growing as well. Like I don't think we're really that stagnant. Often, if I'm not growing positively, I'm growing negatively.
Yeah.
And I think we can actually, I don't want to go too far because I know what we're talking about today, but like if I could have gotten weaker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I let my mind and I can't do this, I'll never be able to do that. And that's where I was at first. Right. But if I stayed there.
If you'd stayed there, you would have actually gotten worse.
Yeah.
And you know, the girls, I'm sure, could throw in there. I know Rachel couldn't talk about a sport because she didn't play a sport in college. She played tennis, which is not actually a sport.
Wow.
I actually did what Pastor Cody was talking about. I went from high-level 5A Texas tennis to not great, and so I went backwards in my sport. That is tennis. I went backwards.
You're like the all-star then.
Yeah.
You went.
We literally. Yeah, it was not a great situation. So I did what Pastor Cody did. I went from Texas to Arkansas schools, and it was a massive difference in the negative way.
You grew your negative capacity.
I grew my negative capacity. Coaching, everything went down.
I diminished.
Praise the Lord, I'm healed from it.
I diminished. But that is a good point, though. Environment will influence capacity. because what
I think if there's an E in capacity,
what you hang around, your environment will influence it.
100%.
It'll have influence. And so you want to hang around people that have a bigger capacity, or because you'll grow to them like you did. Or if you go to people that have a smaller capacity, I mean, there are guys that play golf. They don't want to play golf with people that aren't very good very often, because they said, my game will go down. Yep. I was always the guy they didn't want to play with very often, because they didn't want their game to acquiesce to the lowest common denominator. So in the few minutes we have, let's dive right in, and let's talk about the first letter or word in our acronym, because C, Fancy starts with C, and we can't draw it all. You just have to put it in your mind. But C is for communication.
Cody. Sorry.
Increase your Cody. No.
Don't do that.
And increase your communication. It's been said that nothing happens until we speak, but you could also say that bad things happen when we speak poorly or speak badly.
That's good.
True communication is so much more than talking or speaking at someone, speaking with somebody, right? Communication really is a meeting of meaning. If you're taking notes, you ought to write that down. True communication is a meeting of meaning. But we tend to talk at people and think that's communication rather than talking with people. Dan Rockwell, leadership freak, is a friend of ours. Dan is a rock star.
Shout out, Dan.
He's got the biggest leadership following on social media, I think, of any leadership guru. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands, maybe into a million, I don't know, followers across all the platforms. Dan says it this way: the higher in leadership you go, the less you do and the more you talk. I would venture to say the higher up in life we go, it's not just about doing, it's about talking, it's about communication. So life and leadership is about conversation. And better leaders have better conversations. Better leaders have better communication. People who are winning in life, they do a better job of communicating.
Right.
And even, we're preachers, right? So preaching should be a conversation that gets people to have more conversations.
100%.
If somebody hears me preach and they go away and say, oh, that's great, never think about it, never talk about it again, I failed. Right. But if I can get them to start talking, then things can change. Organizations, right? They are the sum of their conversations, and teams move in the direction of their conversations. But you could also say it this way, and you guys weigh in on this. Communities move in the direction of their conversations. Nations move in the direction of their families move in the direction of their conversations. So let's be honest. Right now, that may be why our nation's not headed in such a great direction, because we're having really terrible conversations.
Wow.
We're not talking with one another. We're talking at each other. We're not having dialogue. We're having, I like to say it this way, we're not having vital dialogue. We're having visceral diatribe. Right. So vital dialogue is dynamic and important conversation, but visceral dialogue is just vomiting, or diatribe is just vomiting at people.
Right.
And so that's a phenomenon of the last few years in some way. I mean, people have always done it, but let's talk about how social media has made that happen on steroids.
It's true. Girls?
Yeah, I mean, social media, it's just more instantaneous, whereas it was maybe the newspapers before or something like that. It just made it where you can see it immediately and get into interactions that are negative in real time.
Yeah, and before, so you read a newspaper, read a newspaper or watch the news, whatever, maybe it riles you up, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't like it. Who do you talk to about that pre-social media? Maybe the water cooler at work, that proverbial water cooler conversation. Maybe your family at dinner time. But now who do you talk to about it?
Your friends on social media.
Those thousands of friends you've never met on social media.
Right.
And even some of them that aren't your friends. It's your friends' friends
Or some random person from high school.
Or yes, and you go at them in a way you would never go at them in person. And so I just wanted to take a second to talk about how part of the problem with the direction of our nation is the direction of our conversations. Wow. They're not really headed in. So I have to ask myself, are my conversations contributing to good? Wow. Or are they contributing to bad? Are people really getting my message? And if not, what can I do to grow my communication skills so that my true heart comes out? Because I'm convinced a lot of people are just spewing off stuff on social media they don't even half believe.
Right.
Not word for word what they're saying.
Yeah.
There's so many times Cody and I have read things and he goes, listen to what this person said. And you think, you can't believe that.
You don't actually believe
I know you. You don't actually believe that. You're just spewing stuff. So then that comes to the question of what have I done in the last year to improve my communication skills? You know, have I read any books? Have I taken any courses? Have I done anything? Does anybody ever evaluate or critique my communication skills? And you know, we have to do this. All of us are and I said we're preachers. We're all preachers. Everybody in this room are preachers. And so you know, we create a culture of evaluation around our public speaking. But what about a culture of evaluation on how I just speak to other people? Yeah. How I text.
How I communicate with myself.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
I mean, sometimes I say some of the nastiest stuff to myself.
Yeah,
I would never say to somebody else.
So that's true. That's true. And so we have to ask ourselves, you know, who's helping me evaluate, you know, as a spouse, communicating better. Children and parents learning how to communicate better. I mean, you've had to communicate with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Now you're having to communicate with a teenager.
Yeah.
Come on.
A preteen is much different than a toddler. And I think sometimes we want to talk to our toddlers like they're preteens, and then we talk to our preteens like they're toddlers.
Ouch.
And then we do the same thing with people. I'm finding that in my parenthood. But how many times am I talking to people spiritually who are toddlers, expecting them to understand like a preteen, and that is like, whew.
Or talk at people rather than listening to them, because listening changes with different people. I have to listen differently.
You do.
And so you know, how am I communicating with my friends, with my neighbors, with my work colleagues, and again, social media. I'll never forget Dr. Graham Cato, who is he's a phenomenal communicator. Yeah. I mean, the guy he's incredible. We go to Southeast Asia together, and we all teach all week. And at the end, he looks at me and says, "I want you to evaluate my speaking for the week." And I thought, how amazing is that? But again, not just preaching. My life is preaching a message. Your life is preaching a message. Now, there's a lot of practical things. So in the next few minutes, I want to talk about these a little bit. We're not gonna be able to like unpack them all, but hopefully we'll start some conversations that people would have. So there's some practical things we can do to help our communication skills. One thing is just we do this in platform ministry or public speaking, but also off the platform. How many filler words do I use?
Right.
The other day, we went and nobody wants to listen to that.
It's true.
And you had a unique experience with that in high school. Yeah. Tell about that really quickly.
So I went to the best way to put it is a college prep school where we
classical education.
We had classical education, and we had rhetoric, and we had speech and debate. We were able to debate anything and everything, which was great for me when I wanted to debate a grade on a paper. It's not always the best for me now as an adult, because I still want to debate all the time. But
that's another subject.
Yeah, but one thing that we talked about is, so rhetoric, one of the definitions of rhetoric is the art of speaking well. And we worked on speaking well and how you can improve your speech, how you can improve your communication, how you can improve your debating tactics, that sort of thing. And so I had the Dr. Deborah Lowe is an incredible woman, but she instilled some really important communication skills in me that I still am trying to improve on today. Even in this, I said already, and I know that I did, so don't comment it right now, okay? But I think even being aware of it is a great place. You're not going to erase them altogether, and sometimes you're going to do them on purpose, right? But I think that being aware of these things, if I want to grow my capacity in communication, then this is a practical step that you can do. And so I had it when we were doing speeches, she would in the back or have somebody, anytime you had a filler word, that she would raise a hand, like raise a finger on her hand. And it was bad when she then would have to like get to another hand. And then she would tell somebody while you're speaking, hey, like another one. So then you have somebody that you got people in the back, they look like they're, praising God in the back.
Having a praise break.
They're having a praise break over here. And because of all the filler words. And so again, you're not going to eliminate them altogether, but I think being aware of it, even in your everyday speech, you're going to communicate better. You're going to communicate better to the relationships that you care about, and even your boss, that sort of thing.
I think there are people thinking, what difference does it make? But you just said it. You're going to have to communicate with your boss. You're going to have to communicate with colleagues, neighbors, friends. You need to learn to communicate the gospel.
Yeah.
If you can't look people in the eyes and speak well, how are you going to communicate the gospel? So some of you say, well, what difference does it make? Also, realizing that helps us to understand those fillers a lot of times come from childhood, because that's the only way it's your place marker.
Yep.
So when you're talking,
it keeps the person's attention on you. If you just keep saying then
nobody can interrupt, especially if you were in a big family where if you had a moment of silence, not a moment, I mean like a fraction of a second of silence, somebody's going to jump in.
Yeah.
It's like eating the food first in a big family. Yeah. Groceries come, go get them. So if there's dead space, speak. And learning how to not speak over people. That's the other side of that.
Yep.
Not interrupting people. Maybe that's the only way you got a word in edgewise. And I'm making fun of big family, but it could be two kids and they just talk over each other all the time, or a talkative mother or father or whatever. So learning those things. Along with that are some other tricks you can, or not tricks, but things you can learn called logical fallacies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's about 29, I think, major ones.
Major
right?
ones, yeah.
So talk about what you learned about logical fallacies and then how that ties into just what we see on social media.
Yeah. So again, it helps with your communication both ways. Whenever you're speaking, trying to bring a point across, or whenever you're hearing, you can assess, okay, what is this person, if I'm really listening, what is this person having to say, and is what they're saying logical? Does it make sense? And so, again, I took a logic class where we learned about logical fallacies, and these things have been the bedrock. They're the bedrock of like speech and debate and rhetoric. And so whenever you start to look at these things, and if you've been a fan of Midweek before the podcast, or if this is the first time you're hearing about it, I'm sure that you've heard about it before whenever we spoke about them some last year. It was last year, right?
I think so.
I think whenever we were talking about some of the kind of the visceral diatribe that was going on. But I think it helps you in your personal speech, and then it also helps you assess what somebody's saying to you, if that be a boss, a relationship that's close to you, or a talking head on the TV, or a viral video, or a TED Talk, or
a presidential debate,
or an influencer. Like those sorts of things really, really help you. So you start to find certain things of like, there's so many different ones, but slippery slope, where it's like, I'm going to take you down. If it's a if then, so it's like, if this means this, then this means this. And if that means that, then this means this. And so they take you down. And a lot of times the best communicators are really good at logical fallacies.
That's what I was going to say. A logical fallacy can be a compelling emotional moment, but you got to be able to number one, dissect them in other people and dissect them in yourself. Yeah. So we won't take the time to go through them.
You can Google them easy.
But some that you can Google, red herrings. Here's a big one a lot, straw man arguments. Yeah. You see that on social media a lot, circular reasoning, and then probably the biggest one is ad hom. Yeah. And so when you could Google any one of those things and you could get some definitions, and it's just good study to learn. Oh, that's just I'm just talking in circles. Yeah. That's just circular reasoning. Yeah. You know what? That's just a straw man. Why am I saying that? I'm just trying to win. Yeah. I'm just trying to win.
True. And it's a lot of times it's easy to assess them in toddlers, like what you're kind of talking about earlier. It's easy to assess them in toddlers. So you're watching two toddlers talk. One kind of wins over the other one, and then the other one says, "Well, you're stupid," right? Like, "Well, you're just a big dummy," and you're like, "Haha, that's funny." Hey, don't be mean, don't be rude, and also that means you just got owned, right? Like the one toddler one owned toddler two. But whenever you do it more eloquently, and you might even find yourself doing it, so it's like you, like me, say we're at a job and we have a boss, and I say something. I'm not saying, "Well, he's just a big poo-poo head." I say something like, well, he's just trying to do that for his own gain, because that's how he does everything.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot more eloquent way to try to back up a point when it's like, that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about he got mad because I didn't meet my deadline.
Right.
And I'm just pulling this analogy out of, but I'm trying to say, hey, he shouldn't have got that mad about a deadline, but then I attack his character at home.
Right.
And so it's easy to assess in children. And I think,
but we're all just big kids.
Yeah. And I think Father God, right, is like, hey, children, stop.
Don't do that.
Don't get along.
Stop. Okay. And so just winding down here, another question you can ask yourself, you talked about rhetoric, and there are 2,000-year-old principles that are the bedrock of communication, rhetoric, and that's logos, ethos, and pathos. And logos for us Spirit-filled Christians in this context is not the written word of God. Okay. It's a broader.
Not a Bible software.
It's not a Bible software that you use to study the Bible. Logos is logical presentation or appeal. Pathos is emotional appeal, and then ethos is the credibility you have. So it doesn't matter what I say. If I have no character, nobody's listening.
Right.
That's ethos. I have no ethos. Pathos is the commercial that shows the puppies dying and starving.
Arms of an
and then they want then send us money to help save the animals.
Yeah. Skinny little dog.
It's pathos. The key is you need all three of those legs for the stool of your communication to stand up. You take away one leg and it's going to topple over. So you need all three. You need a balance of logos, ethos, and pathos. Yeah. And again, we're just throwing this out here for conversation. If you've never heard of those terms, you ought to Google them, look them up, and begin to think about how much am I just pulling on people's emotions? How much am I saying things that I don't have the relational capital to say? I don't have the credibility to say. How much am I just boring people with my dead facts and I have no emotion to what I'm saying? And again, we're not just talking about preaching or public speaking or debate. We're talking about life. In my conversations, I need all of those.
And they can all surface themselves in different ways. But a great analogy to kind of think about is pathos gets you into the room. And so it's like the energy that gets you into the room. Logos is like the key, the mechanics that opens the door to get you in the room, and ethos keeps you in the room.
That's good.
And so it's like in any conversation, I want to be able to get to their heart, right? But I also want to open the key to their heart to be able to enter in, and that's like the logos, the mechanics of why this works. But then ethos, it keeps a place there.
And if you're sitting here thinking, this doesn't apply to me, if you're a parent, it applies to you. If you're a spouse, it applies to you. If you have a job, it applies to you. If you work for somebody, it applies to you. If you have employees, it applies to you. If you're breathing, it applies to you.
And usually we're better just individually, we might be better at one of those than the other. And so we have to realize just because I care more about this.
Statistics.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a great way to put it. Because I care about facts over feelings, right? And I care about numbers, and I care about all the stats. Doesn't mean that it's going to affect everybody else the same way. And so if I really do care about that, then I need to learn how to communicate that in another way for somebody that you start talking numbers and they check out.
Yeah.
Just the same as if I speak in greatests and bestesses, right? If I'm a hype person that only speaks in greatests and bestesses, I walk in a room and it's the coldest room in the world. And you leave this podcast and you tell everybody, this is the greatest podcast of all time. Listen. No, it's not. Okay,
what? We'll
get there. Wait, we're working on it, right? It is not. Like, just factually, we can't say it's the best. We the stats, the logos isn't there yet. Right. But
I would say the best.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Don't ruin what I'm speaking about here, guys. Okay, I'm driving home a great point. And so if you're greatests and bestesses, you have to learn how to. Okay, it might not be the greatest, but they left me a nugget that was great, right? And they spoke about ethos.
Something
logos.
can be great and not have to be the greatest.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we have to compare them?
And there's certain people, when you say greatest,
they're like, no,
they're like, no, like what I just said. No, I can't. The stats aren't there. They don't. You know what I'm saying? Technically, actually,
but you don't have to downplay it. If
Stephen Furtick has the largest Christian podcast. You know,
if it was great to you,
right?
That's still valuable,
and you can bring out those things, how to communicate that to somebody.
That's a great point. So one of the things I want us to see as we're going here is culture. It's been said, eats vision for breakfast every day, right? But culture is disseminated through language. So if you want to change the culture, you got to change your language, because language, common language in a team or an organization or a family is paramount to moving forward together. So we've got to, if we want to change our culture, we've got to change our language. So if we want to change the culture of our marriage, change the language in our marriage. You want to change the culture in your office, change the language in your office. The conversations. Yeah. We're talking about conversations, communication. Language is taught and caught. Yeah. It's not either or, it's both. Yeah. You guys both speak foreign languages. You went to Costa Rica to get immersed, right? Isn't that right? In a language school that was more you catching it. You had been taught it, but you got immersed in it, right?
Well, I was taught the language in the language.
There you go.
Whereas
it was both.
Yes, it was both.
You were learning information and immersion.
Yeah. Like my teachers taught us in Spanish.
But then you took Spanish through.
It was the same thing. I took Spanish in school, and that's kind of where I started to be fluent. But then I just had to do it because I was a therapist to Spanish-speaking clients.
And so she didn't go away to another culture to do it, but she got thrown into a place where she had to use the knowledge she had.
Yeah.
And you learned more.
Yes.
Because you had to.
A lot more. Right.
Yeah. And so it's not that either one's right or wrong. We should have both, but we got to make sure that our that there's a meeting of meaning. Because when you started speaking another language, you thought certain things meant certain things. But then you found out later they had nuances you didn't know.
Yeah, that's the second learning that you learn when you're learning a different language. It's a whole nother education that you get.
Because you have the dictionary definition.
Which doesn't go too far in a lot of places.
Exactly. So, there's things that we've said today that if you looked up the definition of no cap and not in the Urban Dictionary, it might not... It might not give you the connotation that Cody meant it in, that we meant it in when we were talking. You could do that all day long. So the point is, we not only need the right language, we need the right conversations, we need the right communication. So we got to ask ourselves, are we communicating well? Are we listening as much as we're talking? Are we talking at people? Are we talking with people? Are we working on our communication skills to increase our capacity in life? Dan Rockwell says it this way, that you got to have the right conversation with the right people. He said the right 2-minute, 5-minute, or 7-minute conversation can change everything in an organization. Yeah. So he talks about standing around the water cooler and having the right conversations. And I just want to end with this. Part of what he's saying in that is sitting and listening to people. So what kind of conversations are you having with people that don't look like you? That don't talk like you, that don't think like you? If you're a Republican, when's the last time you listened to a Democrat and didn't try to interrupt them and throw ad hom at them? If you're a Democrat, when's the last time you had a Republican over for dinner and said, tell me about your story? If you're white, when's the last time you sat down with a black person and had a real meaningful conversation? If you're straight, when's the last time you invited a gay couple over to your house to listen? See, just because I'm listening to you doesn't mean I agree with you, and just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I have to correct you.
Yeah.
I can still have a conversation, and ultimately we can learn and grow together. So we've got to say, am I asking the right questions? Am I listening? Do I listen as well as I talk? And then the final thing, I've been saying we're closing for a long time. This is our first one. They're not all going to go this long.
Yep.
But we kind of got.
We said the premise.
Yeah.
First one.
We had a long introduction. Yeah. So I want to finish with this quickly. Is this whole idea of do I praise more than I criticize? I want to leave you with this one. It's been said that a negative comment takes 2.3 to 5 times the number of positive comments to balance it out. So you've got, every time you speak something negatively, you've got to have 3 to 5, I'm going to round up, 3 to 5 positive comments to negate that one negative. That's why when you have negative self-talk, you've got to talk 5 times more positively to get rid of that negative communication within yourself. But how about with our friends, with our spouses, with our children, with our colleagues, with different people? We want to be a praiser more than we want to be a criticizer. Doesn't mean we don't need to critique, but it's just I want to be more positive in my communication. If we didn't get anything else than that, if we just all ended this podcast and said, I'm going to try to be more positive. I'm going to try to speak more positive. Because you know what? The greatest communication of all is the gospel, and it's the good news. It's the good news. So am I communicating good news or bad news? Yeah?
So good.
All right. Well, we are so glad that you joined us.
Yes.
If you're watching this live, I hope you joined in the conversation. If you're watching it on all the other platforms, if you're on, subscribe, do all the things.
Yeah, subscribe, send it to people, share it with people, let people know. And I think it's going to be fun. Again, I'm really excited.
Let's keep the conversation going.
I think it's going to be fun.
All right. God bless. We love you. And there's nothing you can do about it.